Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to Dungeonology, the Expedition. This is the Rocca Civetta Kickstarter expansion box. This is video part 2 of 3. So if you missed part 1, we went over all the different scholars and bosses, which you can see almost all of them on here. Bunch of new characters, some really cool stuff. A little bit longer video, but there was a lot of new stuff. I think there was 7 new scholars and 9 new bosses, some of them having actual little game modes as opposed to just hopping in the dungeon and doing stuff, new tiles to play on, some extra new mechanics. So in video part 2, we're going to go over majority of the rest of the cards. We have our trick cards, our clan cards, intern cards, panic cards, little stuff like that, that we're all going to jump back into and look at. And then in video part 3, we're going to go over the additional modes, which is solo mode and campaign mode. We're going to take a look at those a little bit more in depth than I usually do for alternate modes, just so you have an idea of what they are. Plus, we're going to look at the crossover stuff with the other Nobody at this Chronicle games, such as Black Rose Wars and stuff like that, and DEI. So to start off, what I want to look at is we have a bunch of star tokens. So the point of these, they added them in there, was they thought it would be easier for players to keep track of when they hit stars on their noteboard. So as you get so many cubes in green, red, blue, so on, you earn either a gold or a silver star. These ones only have gold because they're such small columns. But then you can do is pick up your token and put it on your board or set it somewhere. Then if you ever dropped your tokens below, you can remove it. It helps for a quick visual of just be able to see, oh, I can tell I already have this star and I have this star and I have this one. So very cool. And there's enough here for 6 players, which core game has 4. One of the expansions has an extra 2 players in it. The Aromatis expansion. So yeah, kind of cool that you can pick this up. Now, again, is it necessary to play the game? No. It's just going to kind of maybe help people so you don't have to keep looking out your board, trying to see if they've hit that star level or not. And they're all double-sided, so nothing extra special there. Cool. Just as a reiteration on one thing we went over the last videos, we have some new cubes in the game. We have some black and white ones, which are false information and universal cubes. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we've already went over this. But basically, false information are used on some, some of the game modes, including 4 Zones 4. And they get put on the board, and then they don't do anything. They're just there to block whatever comes behind them. Universal cubes, on the other hand, have the little eye icon on the board. They'll tell you where to put them. They act as any cube. You can put them down and have them replace any other cube on your board. It's very cool. And they're using some game modes for different reasons to kind of like a success or a failure type of thing. But yeah, those are neat to have. Next, we're going to look at our student congregations. So these were also mentioned in the, or also in the Unruly Students expansion, which had 3 different groups. Now we're going to get 4 more of them. They're just other different fraternities besides the Omega, which are the red ones. We get different colored ones. We have Phi, which is the purple, Zetas in black, Iotas in blue, and Lombardas in green. Now, it does say there's a couple of characters. Fredo and Jukas' boss use the Iota and Phi ones, so if you're playing as them, you can't use this mode, or playing against them, you can't use this mode. And Katrina and Claudio as scholars use the Zeta and Lombarda, so if you're playing as either of those scholars, you can't use these guys in the mode. So yeah, there's going to be these extra little colored ones. Except for the blue ones, we only have 3 of each, because that's how many you use in the game. The blue has a special mode for the Fredo boss where you use more than 3 of them. They just replace the students, and they will have special little cards that tell you what they do when you gather them. So enter congregation in the game, do the following steps. Such a congregation can be used from those available. Take the student congregation cards and place them on a table visible to all players. Put 3 students per congregation in the reserve. Leave the others in the box. During the game setup, enter a student for each congregation among those in the reserve at the university. Replace the equivalent number of these standard students. Each time the university is replenished with students indicated on the alert card, first enter a student from each congregation among those in the reserve. So you start with putting all 3 in the reserve. Then when you build the bag, you're going to put 1 of each of these guys in there. So if you're only using 1, they're going to pop up very rarely. If you use all 4 of these from this expansion, they're going to pop up a little bit more frequent. If you use all 7, you're going to get them a lot more and have a little bit more chaos in the game. So when you do insert each congregation among those in reserve, always replace the equal number of students. So if you take 2 of them, 2 colored ones from the reserve, put 2 regular ones back in the reserve so they stay the same amount there. If for any reason there's not enough at Philly University or no longer available, fill complete standard students. When more than 1 student must be placed in the campus bonfire, the current player chooses the order in which to place them. So if you draw out a blue, a black, and 2 regular students, you drew 4 for some reason, you can choose what order you put them in, because it's also an order they're going to get picked up back off the board. When students are picked up from the campus by a scholar, they must take them starting with the last one available. When a scholar draws a student belonging to a congregation, they can choose to sacrifice a standard student in their possession to keep it for themselves instead of placing it on the bonfire. So either way, you still technically you keep a student, but you have the option of getting a special one instead. Each student belonging to a congregation works exactly like a standard student, so you can pay for them to sacrifice to avoid stuns. Anything else, if you go into a room that says sacrifice a student for an effect, you have to discard 1 of them. The effects of students can be activated by a scholar who owns it by indicating its indication as a congregation card. Student effects can be activated by a scholar on their turn, or if the quick symbol is present, even during their opponent's turn. So all this is going to do is add these extra little things to do, just more stuff to do on your turn. So if you pick these guys up, you get extra bonuses. And the thing is, since anyone can get them, it's not player A has this, player B has this. That might be a neat alternate mode you could play. Not mentioning the game is like each person gets their own different group of students. So, if they get pulled out, they specifically could sacrifice to get their color. That'd be kind of a neat idea too. But so for the Iota students that are blue, place a student in your zone instead of the reserve. As long as the student is in this zone, the information cubes inside cannot be collected except by you. Remove the Iota student from the start of your next turn and put it in the reserve. So cool. You have these guys, you can sacrifice them. They're meant to be like the ice ones. They have a little ice hanging off them. Just kind of like freezing the area so that nobody else can take your stuff. And they work with Frito, the ice White Walker type guy. We have 5, which work with Jukas, little glowing eyes. When you draw a 5 student from the university, take the student without sacrificing a standard student. When you sacrifice a 5 student, take the standard student from the reserve. So these guys just basically replace it. You get a free one, and then when you have to sacrifice one, you get another one to replace it. So they're just constantly, you're keeping extra students, you're gaining extra ones. So it's kind of a neat idea. It gives you more of a reason to pick them up. They come up, grab them, cool. Sacrifice them, you get an extra student back anyway, so you're not actually losing something. So sacrificing has a little less meaning for you. We have the Zetas, which work with Katrina, the scholar. So they're like their own separate little group there. She says, sacrifice a Zeta student to discard 2 stun tokens, or sacrifice 2 Zetas to discard a Jinx card. So that's going to happen as much because we only have 3 of them. But definitely a neat idea that you can do is have a way to possibly get rid of some of your stuff. And then Lambada, which works with Claudio, who's our hunter. Sacrifice a nature kind of thing. Sacrifice a Lambada student. Place a trap token of your choice in any dungeon zone. That's kind of neat. So you're going to place some specific trap tokens down. You have them from the base game. You have all your different ones you can flip over and get like the stuff that might stop someone or might make them sacrifice or drop a cube. It's just kind of neat. You can have these guys to have a way to go. And it's a cool idea to give everyone a potential special power. Like I said, it might be kind of neat if you hand out each player gets their own student. Now they can only gain that extra ability. Now it gives your character, your scholar, their special card ability, plus occasionally an extra student ability they can only sacrifice if they get one of those colors. And just have maybe the ruling if anytime you draw that player can sacrifice one to get that guy instead. That might be a neat little idea versus everyone having access to every ability, because then you only have to focus on one colored card. But that's not the standard rule, so that is entirely up to you if you decide to play that. Alright. We also have another new a bunch of allies to play if we want. We have 2 familiar cards, which will have little backs like this. Now this is gonna be like something like this and like the IOTA students or the congregation students. Some of these other neat things is I know like they do the Kickstarters, but then they usually stop making these games. I wish they would make more expansions of some of these games because they have 2 little familiars. It would be cool if we would have had enough to have more for like multiple characters. Like the familiars have the dependence rule, so to use them in the game of Dungeonology, the danger zones must be advanced and must also use the 4 zones. So you have to have the 4 zones from this expansion, which maybe that's why they wouldn't release them in a separate one, because if you didn't have that, they might not work. Our powerful allies can be hired by scholars by paying their engagement costs, which require them to put a certain number and type of information cubes in reserve from the noteboard. Start of the game, the models and familiars are placed in the reserve and use the engaged familiar zone effect to combine with specific familiars, takes the model, as long as it is not linked to another scholar, linking it to his own, and takes it to its card bonus, grants it indicated as long as the model remains attached. If a scholar who owns a familiar performs the rest activity, the familiar releases, leaving the model in the zone it is in. While there's a placed in the reserve, the zone counts as if it contains the engaged familiar zone related to that familiar. So basically there's going to be as in both of them. They're going to have little effects up on the top. You have to pay their amount. Then they join you and they gain a bonus. What do they mean by linking? So if we look at the cards, we'll look at the 2 miniatures here. So we have the Manticore and we have Yoka. So here's our Manticore. Little tiny kitty. Who I like to think, because this is a precursor to the full Nova Yectus games, this is the Manticore, and then later we fight the full Manticore, the adult version, in the future games. But you notice it has a half base, and they're a moon or crescent base, not really a half base. And here is Yoka. So Yoka is very, if you know, you get the reference. Why are there like little goblin bodies on the ground? This is a reference to yogurt from Spaceballs. So one thing that comes to this we'll talk about in the next video is there is a crossover with Sing Tempor. So you can use this as an ally in Sing Tempor, which is one of their first games. And in that game, in one of the Kickstarter stretch goals, they had other members of the Spaceballs crew as alternate or homage models. So it's kind of neat that, like, a couple of games later, they added another character that then you can use as a crossover. Bummer if you're just trying to collect all of them, but at least it's neat to have it. So what they mean by linked is they have these little crescent bases, which is a fun mechanic that the Nova Yectus Chronicle games use, where they did have these little bases that fit right around the edges of one of their miniatures. So now these guys are stuck together. So if Andromeda moves, Yoka moves with her. They move to different zones together. If she goes to rest, and she's her teleport action basically to rest, goes back to the rest zone, he stays where he's at, and now you have to activate him again. What are these zones we're talking about? So we have some brand new level 4 tiles. We'll look at these a little bit more when we get there. But each two of the tiles will have their symbols on them, so specifically for their areas. So this is kind of neat to add these in there and have ways you have to summon them using these specific tiles. But again, that also kind of means that they're not as useful in any game. So you can't add them to any single game. I get they're very powerful because they're kind of like interns, but maybe a little bit more powerful. Especially because you keep them as long as you don't go to the rest. No one can take them from you, even if they go to one of them zones. It says as long as they're linked to you, no one else can take them. Where interns, they could draw a card to steal them. So the Manticore costs 2 red cubes, but it gets you protection from every single color, which means you cannot have someone steal or force you to drop any cubes of those colors. You still might have to give them, but they can't force you to get rid of them. We've had interns that have this as well. And Yoka costs 1 yellow, but it lets you have +1 hand size, +1 intellect, which lets you find another cube, and +1 for drawing students. So very neat. So just some very interesting, cool little abilities that we have there for those 2 characters. Again, they are neat. But there's a couple of downsides to them would be is you have to have the level 4 tiles, which also means you're not going to get them until later in the game, versus maybe having allies that could be available at any time. Depending on what mode you're playing. Of course, if you're playing one of the other modes where the tiles could all be mixed together and randomized. Such as in the Rigor Mortis expansion, we have Kragamothora, which lets you mix 4s. They still have to be on the bottom of the pile, so they're still going to be some of the last ones drawing anyhow. But you might have something that, if you're just playing around and doing whatever you want, you might get them earlier. I get you have to wait till you get them. But also, been kind of neat if you had up to 4 of them, so each player could get their own ones. Now, for me, someone that loves all these crossovers between everything else, it would have been kind of also neat if we could have had a crossover pack from like Black Rose Wars, which has a bunch of familiars in that game, to cross these guys over that direction, or vice versa. Actually, would have been kind of, and we do to an extent. The Manticore does cross over. Would have been kind of neat to have those other miniatures be able to cross over into this game as well. But maybe someone made some fan versions. I have not looked. So that's what we have there. Let's take a look at our clan cards. Actually, let's take a look at our, Let's take a look at our 4 zones first, as long as we were talking about them. We'll take a look at those quick. Zoom back out here for a minute. So yeah, we have level 4s. So they're going to be a little bit harder to get to. Like there's a couple other modes where you can use stuff that count as level 4s. So you gotta watch our thing. Grab a secret passage on there, so you can use that to like link to another tile. We have the bad luck symbol. Let's see if I have a list of all my symbols on here. I think it was on the last page. Sorry, those are stairs, not a portal. Stairs because you add it to another zone, so you can link these together. Good luck, bad luck. If the number is red, add the highest value bonus to the cards drawing to the alert value. And then a boss zone. So you have like a little mushroom cave. But now we're going to see on here, we have the X's and the I's. These are for our black and white cubes. There they are. For our information and false information cubes. So that's the other thing getting to level 4 is you have to go through twice to get the bad ones, to get the really good one. The good one can count as anything you need, which could be very vital endgame to finishing up your stuff. Here we have one where we're dropping into a wall. It has some colored doors, purple and yellow, so it's a little bit harder to get into. But it's a stairway descending down. I wonder if this is referencing like Inferno. From Black Rose Wars, you did go down like the Hellscape world. Might be, but it has Hecatomb, which is a newer keyword from the base game. It says when a scholar enters the zone, sacrifice all their students. Bad luck, and then draw 3 from the bag. Our third one is we have a ship. This is a big reference to Sing Tempor and the Genesis ship, which is like where Judas and Andromeda and stuff come from. So sacrifice 3 students, stop, activate the boss mode. We have this portal here. So I'm not sure what this is a direct reference to. Could maybe be referencing something like for Gaia, but you have to drop 2 cubes when you enter here. We have the Manticore Cave. So you just summon them, activate bosses. And then we have Yoka's Temple, which has the Schwartz ring in there, as well as his big giant statue has this theme. So very homage-ish, but that's still pretty cool. But I like this one you can enter no matter what, but you have to activate a boss. This one you can get through the stairs, or you have to use a blue or a red, blue or yellow. So cool. Extra zones are always fun to have, though. So I'm never gonna complain about that. All right, then we have our new clan cards. So clan cards are always fun. You get new ones. They're going to add some extra stuff in here. So from the base game, in case you haven't checked out the expansions, we have our standard. You need 24 points to be able to do this, and you have to have 2 stars. But now these guys also have an extra condition. You have to have a green silver star, which again, going back to the beginning of the video, that's where these would be kind of helpful, because once you get some of these stars, you can just, oh, I already have that. Cool. But this is a Shepherd of Frauds, and it's going to have a couple of different ups and downs on there. So we're going to get some more of the different races we have. So we have the Other Fawns. These are the ice ones that kind of go with like Frito's race. We have the Rastafans. The Brood of Stones. So we have some of the chameleons. Basilisks. Should be basilisks. The Slaves of the Hypnoporus, like Hypno Frog from Futurama, that's kind of a funny one. The Druids of Gaia. The Sprigging Savages, these are, just more Spriggings you have to fight against. I kind of wonder if they're based off the triple threat. Look at 16 is a little bit low, but you have to have a star in each different category, so it's kind of tricky. The Slaves of the Black Bully. Then the last 4 we have actually have extra bonuses on them. So we have the Cult of the Hermit. So that's 17, a little bit lower, you have to have a yellow star. But if you have a blue one, you get an additional 7 points. The Shadows of the Woods. So 22 with a red, but you have a green, you get an additional 3 points. Reserve of the Were-Rabbits, in Monty Python reference, probably. 5 points for a red one. And then the last one are the Northern Brothers, which if you have the purple one, you get 10. So I kind of like having dual stars, a little bit lower overall total, but you have to have dual stars. It's kind of a fun idea. Bonus points are kind of cool, but I like that we're getting some that don't have them all the requirements. Like, even just having the star is kind of like an upgrade from the base set. So, like, base set, normally you just have to have that. Here, you have to have an extra requirement. Then getting some with the bonus points kind of adds it up a little bit more. So, definitely a fun thing to look at. Alright, let's take a look at our panic cards next. So we have our panic cards. Now, all of these are going to be based on bosses. So if you did not watch the last video explaining the bosses, I'll try and kind of do a quick overview of each one. Now, there's 5 of them, but each one needs a specific boss. I wish they had more base ones, like 1 or 2 just base idea ones, but there's kind of so much you can only do in these games. So for Radalina, our favorite dish is student's leg. So remove the boss card. At the beginning of each player's turn, including whoever has finished the game, current scholar places Raganella in the same zone as the scholar of his choice, unless he chooses himself, different from the zone in which he is currently located. Randomize a single card. If the indicated player is in the same zone as her, they get a stun token until they have equal number to his stamina value. If he already has his amount, he is removed from the game and his game ends. When all scholars place stun tokens to his stamina, the game ends immediately. So, kind of a neat little one. Again, this could have almost been added in as any boss. And just if the boss gets there, they're going to hit you enough until they knock you out. But they just specifically had it for this one boss. We have for Enrico only, who has run. Remove the boss card from the game and place him in one of the zones furthest from the starting zone. At the beginning of each player's turn, including as finish of the game, Enrico moves towards the starting zone without taking into account zone effects to reduce distances such as passages. So he won't take a secret passage or a stairwell. Unless he absolutely has to. Like, if there's no other way for him to move from, like, one zone to another, if you're playing some mode like that. At the end of his game, if a scholar is further... at the end of his turn, a scholar is further away from the starting zone, and Enrico is removed from the game. Enrico enters starting zone, the game ends. So this is kind of interesting because you can race back to the exit. So you might want to stop and try and collect stuff, but you have to outrun him. And every turn he's going to keep moving closer and closer to the end. So it's basically like the back is almost, it's supposed to be the idea of like Indiana Jones being chased by the boulder type of thing. It's very interesting there. We have for Rocca Civetta only. If you cannot resist his melody, you'll never leave the domain of the musician. Remove the boss card and place him in the zone furthest from the starting zone. At the beginning of each player's turn, including whoever has finished the game, move in one zone towards the starting zone. After doing so, the player must determine the distance between his scholar and Capagrezza. If at the end of the turn, scholar is still in play and further away from Capagrezza than it was at the beginning of his turn, he must put an information cube in his reserve. If he enters the starting zone, the game ends immediately. So kind of like, also like the other, like Enrico is going to be working towards the end, but instead of it just, if you're farther away, if you're behind him, you get eliminated. This is at the beginning of the player's turn. It affects, after doing so, the player must determine the distance between his scholar and him. So how many zones away are you? If at the end of a scholar's turn is still in play, so if they haven't left the game, and they're further away than at the beginning, he must put information in the cube to the thing. So yeah, it's not just going to eliminate you for being behind, but if you draw too far away from him, you're going to lose your information. So he's trying to lure you back to the entrance, basically, by making you follow him. But it's going to, like, limit what you can go ahead and select. So that's kind of cool. Again, some of these could have almost been, like, any boss versus a specific boss. They get a little bit of thematicness to it, of like the dungeon run or the musician, but they could have just kind of almost been like, hey, play this, but you have to use this with a boss, versus some of the other ones you can opt to use without bosses. We have Egg Hunt with Marcion Lee, and butchering that name, I'm sure. At the beginning of each player's turn, including the player's finish the game, the current player moves him up to 3 zones towards the scholar with the most eggs. In the case of a tie, the current player chooses the target from amongst the scholars who have the most eggs. A scholar begins his turn in the same zone as him, puts an egg in the reserve. If he cannot, he is removed from the game, and his game ends immediately. Very cool. There's only 7 eggs in the game, so limited resources. And then the last one is Mind Twist for Jukas only. You will deliver this only when I say it, and only when I say it. Remove the boss card from the game and place Jukas in the starting zone. At the end of their turn, a scholar must place a 5 student in one or more of their information cubes on one of the free spaces on this card. If he can't, he's removed from the game and his game ends. At this moment, all spaces on this card are occupied by 5 students per information cube. The game ends immediately. So it's kind of neat with the whole Jukas thing. He sits in the starting zone with his 3 5 students, which are the little purple ones. And then you can opt, he raises the alert level really high. And then you have the option of taking his 5 students, so you can get rid of that effect. And then you can use them for stuff. But as soon as all of them are removed, then he starts running around the board stealing information cubes. So this kind of makes the end even harder, because if you've sacrificed all them 5 students, then you have to give up your information cubes instead. So it kind of also punishes you for using them 5 students for something else. Yeah, neat little twist to the game. Now, this was 5 bosses of the 9. So the 2 bigger ones didn't get anything. I think just because they have so much extra going on, is adding an extra end game to the mode would be a little bit tricky. They're kind of like, if these are boss fights, those are like big boss fights, like final boss fights. And then the other one would have been Fredo, which Fredo would have been one, because I think he just has some interesting other mechanics that would have also been hard to work into this extra mode. And then the last one is the Omega Master, which they probably could have done something with, which would have definitely been fine. But they didn't, so that's what it is. Alright, let's take a look at our Jinx cards, as long as we're looking at bad stuff. So we got some brand new Jinx cards to add to the game. So one of them we've already seen, if you've watched video part 1, which is the Cursed Idol, which worked with Enrico, and he has the Cursed Idol trap that he can play. So as long as you submitted this, so when you pick up the Cursed Idol, you gain this card as well. But you could definitely just put this in your deck as well and have it mixed in. As long as you have this card, you can perform the Submit the Thesis activity regardless of how many stars you have on your noteboard. You can perform the Espionage action, give this card to the target of that action, minus 10 points. So one hand, it's kind of nice, you can end your game whenever you want, but you're losing 10 points, which means if you go first, you're losing your first place, submitting your thesis first bonus. So you might opt to do that if you have enough, if you think you're at high enough points ahead of everybody else, or maybe you're to the point where if you can end it quicker, other players might not be able to finish their thesis in time. So it's kind of interesting there. It might be a gamble. Or you could just give it to somebody else, and maybe if they're lower, they're in second or third place, and you're worried about them catching up on other points, you can kind of negate a bunch of their points. So, cool. We have Distorted Mind. A dark sonic force controls you. As long as you have this card, when you gain more than one information cube, you must place one of them in reserve. Destroying Ray. An ancient artifact competes with insane powers of destruction. As long as you have this card, your starting student and intelligence values are 1. You can enter adjacent zones regardless of whether they're linked or blocked to you. The Flu, you need an aspirin. As long as you have this card, your stamina value is 1. The Haunted Frog. A student gives you a wacky magical frog. As long as you have this, every time you leave the zone, you must croak. If you don't, and your opponent notices it, you gain a stun token. Kind of ridiculous, but you can always leave them out. Then we have 3 more that have special ice on them. So these are kind of neat ones. You have Hypothermia. So I don't, these are probably meant to be tied in with Fredo because he has the ice stuff, but you can add them to any game. It looked like ice cream, but it was a trap. Now you have Brain Freeze. Your hand size, that is reduced by 1. This card cannot be discarded for the rest of the game, but you get plus 2 points. Blisters. Comfortable shoes may not have been your best choice. You reduce your speed by 1. It cannot be discarded for the rest of the game. And the last one is Trembling. You are frozen to the bone. Your stamina value is reduced by 1. Cannot be discarded for the rest of the game. Yeah, so it's kind of neat, though, having alternate different Omega cards like this that do permanent effects, permanent negative effects, but the fact is they still have some bonuses at the end. And that's kind of a neat little idea to do for the game. I was just seeing if there's anything in the rule book that said, like, oh, this is where they should go or shouldn't go. But nope, nothing in there specifically. Special zones effects matters. Nope. Okay. Cool. So yeah, that's those are kind of fun too. Again, this should be something that they need if they have more of these positive effects that or negative effects that aren't super terrible, but they get you a bonus at the end. But you're kind of stuck with them. So very interesting. Again, it's kind of an odd choice to only have 3 because it's like at most you're going to get one per player. Or you can't even get one per player. Awesome. Alright, so up next we have some more miniature cards. We have research cards. So we have a brand new deck of cards. And research cards having advanced rules. So you do not have to use them, but if you like, got some cool stuff. Research contain missions to complete during the game. Each quest completed by a scholar allows you to earn bonus victory points at the end of the game. To use research in Dungeonology, game proceeds as follows. Set up during the game, draw 3 research cards, place them face up near the campus for all to see. Complete a quest anytime during their turn, but only once per turn. A scholar can designate a single quest card they meet the requirements for and take the cards for themselves. New research. Each time a research is complete, taken by a scholar, new research card is drawn and replaces it. End of the game, during scoring all completed research grant bonus victory points. So basically it's a way to do extra little things to gain some extra points throughout the game. So it's always fun. So like gaining stuff like, if you're playing with everything in the game, you can get, potentially get the extra information, universal cubes, which can gain you bonuses, interns can gain you bonuses, depending on where you're on your clan card, that can gain you a plus or minus. We just saw we had some Jinx cards that could get you pluses, most get you minuses. So you have a lot of other different ways, just something else to do. So for athletics, you could sacrifice 3 or more students during your single turn. So now this isn't, I have to choose to sacrifice 3 students and then I get this. This is if I do an action or I do something during my turn that forces me to sacrifice 3, I can choose to get this. And it doesn't care how you have to do it. So if you walk into a Hecatomb area, which sacrifices all your students, you might have to sacrifice all 3 of them. Social. Draw 3 or more students from the university in a single turn. And it doesn't, again, all have to be at the same time. You could play one card that lets you draw 1. You could enter an area that lets you draw 1. And then maybe you have another action. Someone else forces you to draw 1. Oh, look, I've completed 3 during my turn. Speed. Enter 6 different zones during a single turn. Handicraft. Your notebook contains the indicated information cubes, so these ones will be a little bit quicker to probably get. Metallurgy, you have to have a red and yellow. Artifacts have a blue and yellow. Study group have 8 or more students. Some people will be able to get this easier than others. Luck have 2 or more Jinx cards. Rare metals, your board contains a red and 2 yellows. Rituals, you have 3 blues. Cascade, you have 2 purples. And Spin Doctors, you have 4 different colors there. So obviously, these are really cool. They could have even added some more interesting ones. They could have tied in some other stuff. They could have had something like have 3 different I forgot to call Legion students. The different colored students, because you have a bunch in here. You could, again, if you had the expansion, that could be a neat little extra thing. Like if you have 3 different colored students at a time, or 2 different colored students, you could complete it. That'd be kind of a neat thing. Having 3 of the same might be way too difficult, especially because it gets stuck on the board. It might sit there for a long time. Could be something about having like, maybe you have like 2 or 3 different interns. Because, yeah, every game adds more, but this adds another, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more interns. Yeah, something like that could have been kind of neat, like we did that. Maybe even, like, have a card, like, you interacted with a boss this turn. That could have been kind of a cool one. So definitely there's always something I like to look at when I look at these games, like, what other little things could get added in here to just make some of these a little bit more fun or interesting. Alright, so we're down to the last 2 things of the game. Is we have for this video is we have interns and we have trick cards. We're going to get the trick cards first, just because the interns will then be referenced on them. So one other thing the game does, this expansion does come with, is this little card holder you can get. So I put the trick cards in there. Yeah, but you can basically have your draw pile and your discard pile. So kind of neat there. It is a neat little thing. You unfortunately have to take it apart every time to put it back in the box, and I don't think there's a dedicated spot in the box for it. Just kind of just going to get laid scattered in there. But it is neat. The only other downside is this is two different trick decks, and the core game is I think you use 6. So even if you're not just adding some, but you're replacing them, this deck's gonna be like way up to the top here. So like these things aren't gonna hold it after a while. But it is a neat little idea. So I just kind of want to point that out. Alright, so what do we have for our trick deck? So we have 2 brand new ones. We have Specialist, and we have Alchemy, and then we do have some special springing cards as well, which we'll look at. So let's take a look at Specialists. Oops, wrong side here. Are going to have brand new symbol here, which is the auxiliary effect, which just has 1. Play during your own stealth test, add a bonus equal to the number of interns you have to your stealth value. So this is going to let you gain bonuses based on your intern cards, which are really neat. So this is where a lot of our new interns are going to come from. So if you really like interns, you can add this set to it. So we have the Longshoreman. Move it along. Sacrifice or draw a student. Take a brute intern, which will gain you some espionage. And like always, so like this turn is going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones. Normally we always have, maybe we do have 3 of each. Maybe this just got mixed up somewhere. 3. My cards all got kind of mixed up. Yeah, so we have 3 copies of these guys. So, like we always get 3 copies of each of the 1s, and then 2 copies of the 2s, 1 copy of the 3s. So the next ones we have are the Winter Soldiers. You know, the one who lived beyond the wall, so the Wall Walker, so another Game of Thrones reference. The Other, so we get some of him. And it is very simple sacrifice to get them. And then we have 3 copies of the Engaged Bag Holder. Leave boss, I'll take care of it. We have the Porter. So for 2 copies, we have Amateur Fiend, which is the Amateur. We have 2 copies of The Night is Dark and Full of Terrors. We have a Fire Mage. And we have 2 copies of Call the Fool, which you get the Fool. Then we have 1 of each of the last ones. We have Klaatu Barada Nikto. He says it's just an evolved form of medicine. So he's the Necromancer. Of course, it's a Army of Darkness Evil Dead reference. Instructor Surgeon. By giving them some experience for their peers, you specialize as a student in the medical arts. So we get Surgeon, the little death mask. And then we have a look at the Wiki Antirear, which is a Wikipedia reference. The stone that knows everything as long as you do the right research. So yeah, a non-human one we get. Like all our decks, we also get 2 copies of the 4 Fate cards and 1 5. So every time you add a deck to the game, you can add these cards in there. If you're just replacing it, you don't have to add them. But if you're adding more decks, they give you these so you have more Fate cards show up a little bit more often. And then like any of the other rules, is every time you add another deck, once you've added 2 extra Fate decks, which this has, so if you just have this in the base deck, anytime a card references a specific thing, so if like Rebecca says sacrifice a magic card, or someone else says sacrifice expiration or social or whatever trick card, you can sacrifice the Fates instead of that card, just because they might be harder to get once you've added extra decks. Alright, our second one is Alchemy. Which Alchemy is going to have, the Alchemy says, during your movement phase or action phase, discard a trick card from your hand to draw 2 trick cards. The level 2 version is going to be discard 2 cards to draw 3, and the third one is just going to be draw 2 trick cards. So this is a way to kind of revitalize your hand. Discarding 1 card for 2 gains you a bonus of 1. Discarding 2 for 3 does still only gain you 1 card, but it gets you new cards. and the other one just straight up gets you new cards. So like all of these, we have the that's kind of neat. Get 2 different dragons there. It's kind of cool. Little Ouroboros, which is a quick spell. So chase the signs of infinite knowledge, but in the end it will say scribble. So switch the order of the first 2 information cubes in your zone, and we'll have 3 copies of each of these. Transmute. Nothing can stop you when you arm yourself with a barrel of acid. So then returning zones. You can enter zones that are blocked by doors as if they were not present. And then we have the Negrito. Step 1, let me maturate well. Move the first information cube of a newly placed zone to the first empty space of a zone you are in. Must be at least 1 empty space of the zone. So it's all about letting you like rearrange stuff or get around some of the basic rules. It's kind of cool. Negrito is also a cool reference back towards Black Rose Wars. That's one of the enemies you can get. We have the regular Ouroboros, which is the bull serpent. You trace the signs of infinite knowledge. Maybe a little shaky, but it does its job. Put the information cubes in the order you prefer. So the minor one just lets you rearrange 2 of them. This lets you rearrange any of them. Transmute rock, so a little bit upgraded. It shapes the earth and messes up the architect's project. Replace a newly placed zone with the first zone from the same pile if available. Put the discarded zone at the bottom of the pile. So you get like change your zones out. And then we have Albedo. Again, Black Rose Wars has this. Step 2, purify everything with light. Move an information cube from a newly placed zone to the first empty space of your zone. So that's what you moved around. What did your last one do there exactly? Move the first information placed in the first empty space of the zone you are in. Okay, so that one you have to do the first one. This one lets you move anyone to your zone. That could be super helpful. Then for our level 3s, we have the Great Ouroboros. You trace the signs of infinite knowledge, and honestly, you didn't think you were that good. Put the information cubes in your zone and the adjacent zone and link zones in the order you prefer. You can move them from one to another. The Homunculus. Generate a stealthy and inferior alchemic helper. Choose and place a zone. For the rest of the turn, when you from a study or espionage action use trick cards, you can choose to do so as if you were in that zone. And then Rubido, which should be the last one of this group. Step 3, serve a hot with a company biscuits. Put all the information cubes from your zone in reserve, then move all information cubes in the zone just placed in spaces in your zone in any order you wish, replacing the ones you prefer in reserve if there are not enough spaces. Okay, so that's kind of neat. So instead of so first one arranges 2 of them, next one you rearrange all of them. This lets you pull all of them off and then re-put them back in any order, which sounds a lot like their second card. But if there's any other cards that got put in or tokens that got put in reserve for whatever reason, you just steal some of those as well. That's kind of cool. And we got our 2 4s and our 1 5 to tie into that. Alright, then the last one we have 4 copies of the Spriggan, which has an 8 for a fate. So it doesn't have any other abilities on there, but it has 8, which is our highest amount. We only normally have 4 and 5. Contains only the main bonus value of 8 that you can use for your stealth values. Scholar uses a Spriggan and takes the turn from the deck, or from whoever currently owns it. So cool. And this would be a neat thing where you could just add this into any deck if you wanted to. Even if you don't add the other ones, you just have a possible chance of getting some really cool cards. Alright, then let's take a look at our interns and see what each one of them do. So, for the Fire Mage, before you draw trick cards in the end turn phase, you may discard any number of trick cards from your hand. So it lets you refresh your hand very quickly. The other, when you are the target of an espionage action, randomize. If you draw a worship, it fails automatically. The Surging, discard a card. Discard jinx cards and all stun cards in your possession. You discard him to get rid of everything. the Necromancer. If you draw more than one student from the university and you don't draw an Omega student, keep one of the students for yourself. The Wiki and Career. When you draw a trick card in the end of the phase, draw one more, then discard one trick card. So it lets you kind of like mix and match what you want. We have the Amateur. After declaring your stealth value, perform a divination 1, add it to your stealth value. The Porter, just gets you an extra hand size. The Brute, when you are the card of an espionage action, you get +2 to your alert value. And we have the Fool. It says, place the Fool token in your zone. During your movement phase, you may move the Fool up to 3 zones. The zones where the Fool token stops has a +2 alert value. So you're going to get a little token there. That's just a reminder. And then the last one is we have the Sprigging. After declaring your stealth value, perform a divination action of 1 and add it to the alert value. So yeah, kind of neat. You get the bonus of 8 for them, but then you have these guys that, as long as you hold on to them, they're going to always make your divinations harder, so they're up your alert value. So it's a double-edged sword to have them in there. 8 will basically, basically make sure you pass any test you're trying to do. It'd be really hard to lose with that. But then now you have this little negative effect hanging around. So it's kind of a fun little mechanic. Alright, so that's what we have for Dungeonology Kickstarter box for this video. Come back and check out the part 3 if you want to see the extra modes as well as the crossover stuff. See you guys later. Bye.